Okay, so it's now being recorded. I'm going to share my screen so we can see this week's summary. So we start with a brand new book of the Torah this week, the third book of the Torah, the book of Vayikra, Leviticus. And that brings us in the Rebbe's talks. That's also a new book. This is a new volume, volume 12. So I'm not sure. Is Rabbi Dov still doing his class? Does anyone know?
Right. He hasn't started yet, I don't think.
Okay, well, just in case he's starting again this week, we're going to keep to our system of I'm going to do the second one. He'll do the first one. But if he doesn't, and we have more time, we can do the first one after we finish this one. So we actually most of the Sichos that we've been learning have been Rashi Sichos, explaining the Rashi commentary on one of the verses. This is a different style Sicha. This is a Sicha that is a conclusion of a tractate. It's coming up Pesach, so if you remember the day before Pesach, we come into Shul in the morning, and this is usually a fast of the firstborn, and we make a conclusion of a tractate that for those that could celebrate that and be able to eat. If you remember that, that's one of the times that regularly we make a conclusion of a tractate. Rebbe made conclusions of various tractates over the years for various different occasions. It's very common, for example, for a yard site, for somebody's yard site. In honor of the yard site, they will learn the entire tractate of Talmud and then make a celebration on the yard site with concluding the tractate in their honor. So that's one of the times, for various times, the Rebbe made a conclusion as well. So whenever the Rebbe made a conclusion of a tractate, there was a whole talk explaining that last section of the Talmud, explaining that. It usually also explained, just like on Simchas Torah, when we finish the Torah and then we restart it. So often the Rebbe would also connect the end of the tractate to the beginning and show how that's connected as well. So I didn't learn this yet. We'll learn it together. But this is a tractate called Menachos, which is about the flower offerings. What I'm gonna. Yeah, what I'll do is I will mute everybody, make it easier. Okay, so it should be clearer to hear now. Okay, so Menachos is flower offerings that were offered in the temple, and there's a whole tractate just on the flower offerings. So that's what this is about. Okay, so let's get started. So we have over here, in the Talmud, there's two sections of the Talmud. There's the Mishnah, and then there's the Gemara. The Mishnah are the early sages that discussed, and all the different. This is the primary Torah. The oral Torah is all included in the Talmud. We have the Mishnah is the early sages. They wrote down everything, all of their laws and discussions in very, very concise, short words, very deep each word, a lot of meaning. And they wrote it down eventually. The Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi wrote it all down so that it shouldn't be forgotten. But he wrote it down in a way that, that it shouldn't be forgotten, but once you read it, you'll remember all of the discussions and all the explanations. But later on, what happened was all those explanations were forgotten or started to be forgotten. So all the later Talmudic sages had arguments about what the Mishnah means, and then they wrote that eventually down as well, and that's the Gemara. So the Gemara, many, many pages of the Gemara, explain a few lines of the Mishnah. And that together, the Mishnah and the Gemara, comprise the Talmud. So if anyone's ever seen a book of the Talmud, I could probably show it just to give you a little visual. 1 second. Okay, so here you can Stop sharing for a second so you can see me in big. Okay, so here it's backwards, obviously, on the camera because everything's backwards. But here it says Talmud Babli. It's a big book of the Talmud. This is the Tractacte of Menachos that I picked out over here. On my bookshelf, there's many, many volumes of the Talmud. There's about 60 tractates of the Talmud. So the way a standard page of Talmud works, if you've never seen it before, so you have in the middle is the Gemara. On the sides are the commentaries. Rashi's commentary is always on the inside of every page of Talmud. And within this, you have the Mishnah and the Gemara are in that inside section. So, for example, on this page, the first few lines to here would be the Mishnah. So there's maybe 6 lines of the Mishnah, and then the Gemara explaining those 6 lines span a number of pages. Okay, it could be about 10 pages explaining that one Mishnah. So that's the way the Talmud works. So let's go back to our summary sheet. So the last Mishnah of the entire tractate of Menachos states like this. It's stated with regard to an animal burnt offering, a fire offering, a pleasing aroma. Okay, the verse states that it's a fire offering, it's a pleasing aroma for God. That's what it says about an animal burnt offering. And then it says, with regard to a bird of burnt offering, it also says a fire offering, a pleasing aroma. Okay? And then, with regard to a meal offering, the flour offering, it says also a fire offering, a pleasing aroma. So all 3, an animal offering, a bird offering, and a flour offering, all 3 of them say the same words, that it calls them a fire offering and a pleasing aroma to God. Now, the way it worked was that someone, for different types of sacrifices, there were different types of animals that needed to be used. And there were certain sacrifices that it depended on the financial position of whoever was bringing the offering. So if that person was wealthy, they would bring a full animal. If they were less wealthy, they would bring a bird. And if they were even less wealthy, they were poor, then they would bring a meal offering. So why does the Torah say the same words for all 3? It's coming to teach you that one who brings a substantial offering and one who brings a meager offering have equal merit, provided that he direct his heart towards heaven. So it's the reason why the Torah uses the same words for all 3 to teach us that it doesn't make a difference how much you bring, as long as you bring, what your capacity, and the main thing is the attention of the heart. So someone who's a pauper and he's only able to bring a meal offering, and a wealthy person who brings a big bull, a big fat animal that's many times more expensive than a little flour, still for God it's the same thing. And that the main thing is that they direct their heart toward heaven is the intention of the heart. That's the main thing. Obviously, someone who's wealthy is not allowed to bring a meal offering. That would be inappropriate. That would be invalid, actually. If someone's wealthy is able to bring a bigger offering, brings less, that's not what it's talking about. That would be invalid. But we're talking about someone who is only able to bring a meal offering, and someone who brings a animal offering. It's the same. It's the same thing. It's for God. Okay, that's the Mishnah. That's the very last Mishnah in the Tractate. So now let's learn the Gemara on that Mishnah. Okay. So we have over here the Gemara. Rabbi Zeira says like this. What is the verse from which this principle is derived? This idea, the main thing is the intention of the heart. So he says, we learn this from a verse. The verse says, sweet is the sleep of a laboring man, whether he consumes little or much. Okay? That means that someone who's working, as long as he's working hard, that's what counts. Whether he consumes a little or a lot, we don't care about that, how much he's eating. The main thing is how much he's working. So similarly over here, he's using that verse to teach us the principle that whether you're bringing a lot or a little, the main thing is how your intention, how much your dedication, how much work you're doing. That's Rabbi Zera. Then we have Rav Ada bar Ahava. He says that the source is from here, another verse. When goods increase, those who consume them increase. And what advantage is there to the owner? What does that mean? That there's no benefit of having more consumption. You're eating more over here. In our case, it would be the altar eating more. Okay, if goods increase, so people eat more. So what does that gain you? Okay, if there's less goods, you'll eat less. If there's more goods, you'll eat more. It doesn't make a difference. Similarly for the altar, if you're rich, you're going to bring a bigger offering. If you're poor, you'll bring a smaller offering. It's all the same. It doesn't make a difference. So he learns from this verse that for the altar, it doesn't make a difference whether you're rich or you're poor. It's all the same. Okay, so that we have two rabbis. They both tell us bring different verses where we can derive this principle that we learn in the Mishnah. Okay, so now it's taught in a brisa. What's a brisa? So a brisa, you see, the way the Mishnah was recorded, there were first many discussions over the centuries, where many different periods of time where different sages would gather together and discuss all the different laws of the Torah, the oral Torah. And then finally came Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, and he recorded it. It was a major project. In fact, it wasn't allowed to be recorded. But Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi made an exception in this case because he had no choice. If he didn't record it at that time period, it would have been forgotten. Until then, the Jewish people were centralized in one location. They had big yeshivas with thousands of students. And he realized as times of persecution were starting, he's going to have to record it. So he sat down with his group of Talmudic sages, and they went through all the different discussions. They gathered all the rabbis, and each of them repeated what they heard from their teachers and so on. So they got a record of every single sage that ever said any law, any interpretation, any explanation. But then there were many different parts of it that perhaps weren't necessarily accurate 100%, or maybe there was different opinions, and Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi had to choose the main opinions. So he chose from amongst all the teachings. He didn't write them all down. He wrote the main ones down. He wrote the principal ones, and that was included in the Mishnah. All the other teachings that did not make the cut, that did not make it into this big project of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, they're still Torah teachings, but they don't have the same status as a Mishnah. They were included in smaller books called the Brisa. The Brisa are all the excerpts, all the additional teachings that didn't make the cut. So in Talmudic literature, when you're learning them, the Brisa still have all the Talmudic sages and other teachings, but they are on a lower status. So the rule is that, like, say, if there's a one ruling in the Mishnah and an opposing ruling in the Brisa, we would follow the ruling in the Mishnah because that is a superior status. That's what made the cut of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi's book of the Mishnah. So, anyways, that's just a little overview of what a Brisa means. Okay, so it's taught in a Brisa that Rabbi Shimon ben Azai says, "Come and see." Are you guys able to? For some reason I don't see anymore. Everyone's still here? Yeah. Okay. So Rabbi Shimon ben Azai says, "Come and see what's written in the portion of offerings." Okay, there's the names of God, Kel and Elohim. I'm not pronouncing it the way it's written, because it's a name of God. But those two names of God are not stated, but only Hashem. There are various different names of God. So in our prayer service, we very often use different names of God. We have Kel, Aleph, Lamed. In Hasidic teachings, it teaches us the meanings between all the different names, referencing different attributes of God. Kel would be God's kindness. Elohim would be God's justice, severity, Gevura. But the four-letter name of God, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, that's what it means by Hashem over here. That's the holiest name of God. That's God's essential name. And when it comes to the offerings, it doesn't say any of other names. It only says this name, the four-letter name of God, Hashem. Why is that? So he says, this is so in order not to give a claim to a litigant to argue. Okay? What does that mean, a litigant to argue? Okay, I'm going to pull up the source sheet over here. Oh, there's only an audio source sheet. No, that's the Torah. 1 second. There we go. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second. It's not working. Okay, it looks like there's no source sheet yet. Okay. Okay, I'm going to move on to the English translation for a second because it's going to be more clear to understand from here before going back to the summary. Okay, so the Talmud continues on the theme of an aroma is pleasing to Hashem, quoting a Bryce offering 3 explanations with respect to the sacrifices that have an element of novelty to them. It's taught in a Bryce that Rabbi Shimon ben Azai says, "Come and see what is written in the portion of offerings." In these verses, the divine names Kel and Elokim are not mentioned, and only the name of Hashem. This is so as not to give a basis for a litigant to argue. Rashi, I showed you in the Talmud, his commentary is always on the inside of every page of the Talmud. So Rashi explains that this teaching is addressed to those who might claim that multiple deities exist. The one with such and such a name commands them to offer a mincha, a flower offering. The one with such and such a name commands them to offer bulls or rams. So to prevent heretics from professing that different offerings are brought to different deities, that's why the same name Hashem is used in the phrase an aroma is pleasing to Hashem, and also in conjunction with all the various offerings. Okay, so this is a little bit more clear. What's saying is like this. In order to prevent those from mistakenly claiming that heretics might come and claim that if there were different names of God for different offerings, they would claim that, each name of God is really a different deity. It's not one God. Each one is its own different God. And the name Kel would be commanding to bring one type of offering. And the name Elokim would be the one commanding to bring a different type of offering. And therefore, they would claim that the different offerings are really brought to different deities. And that obviously is not true. There's only one God, and these are all names of one God. But to prevent those heretics from saying such a thing, that's why the Torah doesn't use different names with regards to the sacrifices. They only uses one name of God, the essential name of God, Hashem, what we call Hashem, or the 4-letter name, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. That's what it means to not to give a claim to a litigant to argue. The litigant would be a heretic that's coming to argue that there's different deities, so we don't want to give him a claim. That's why the Torah uses the same word. Okay? And the Brisa continues. And it is stated with regard to a large bull offering, I'm back in the short summary now. It is stated with regard to a large bull offering, a fire offering, a pleasing aroma. And with regard to a small bull offering, a fire offering, a pleasing aroma. And with regard to a meal offering, a fire offering, a pleasing aroma. To teach you, now the Brisa is saying the same teaching that we learned before in the Mishnah, to teach you that one who brings a substantial offering and one who brings a meager offering have equal merit, provided he directs his heart toward heaven. Okay, so this is basically the same thing. It might be, it's exactly the same thing. Word for word is the teaching that we learned before in the Mishnah. So in a Brisa that we explained just now what a Brisa is, this is a lower status of teaching. This teaching that we have in the Mishnah is in the second half of this Brisa. The first half tells us the teaching of Shimon ben Azai, Rabbi Shimon ben Azai, but why it only uses the same name of God for each offering. Okay, but then the Brisa continues. There's more to the Brisa. Part 3 of the Brisa now. Unless you say that Hashem needs these offerings for consumption, right? Now, again, we're going to argue with the heretic over here, or someone is going to say that God needs the offerings, as if he needs to eat them. He's hungry, so to speak. If someone might mistakenly say such a thing, that God is hungry, he needs these offerings. So in order to disprove that, the verse states, if I were hungry, I would not tell you, for the world is mine and everything within it. So God is saying, if I was hungry, I don't need you to give offerings for me. The whole world is mine. I would be able to eat. Obviously, if I'm commanding you to go and bring offerings, it's not because I'm hungry, I need them. It's not because I need them. And it stated also another verse, for every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. I know all the fowls of the mountains, and the wild of the beasts of the field are mine. Do I eat the flesh of bulls or drink the blood of goats? So these are different verses proving that God doesn't eat. He doesn't need our offerings because he's hungry. Obviously, the reason why he's asking us to bring the offerings is because he wants us to bring the offerings, not because he needs the offerings. And that's the last part of the Brisa. So far, we'll stop here for today. So far, we quoted the Mishnah, the Gemara, and a Brisa. Okay, just to sum up, the last Mishnah on the Tractacte Menachos. By the way, if you're wondering the connection with this week's Torah portion is all about these offerings. In general, the entire book of Leviticus is full of different offerings. That's like the general theme going through most of the Torah portions. And this week's Torah portion as well. We just finished learning about how the tabernacle, the Mishkan, was erected in the end of last week's Torah portion, in the last book of the Torah. And now they get to work in the tabernacle, bringing all the offerings. So the next bunch of Torah portions are all the details with regards to all the different types of offerings. That's the connection, by the way. I didn't mention that with this conclusion of this tractate to the Torah portion, because this is a tractate that deals with flour offerings and different offerings. Okay, so anyways, just to sum up, the Mishnah tells us about the reason why for animal, bird, and meal offerings, it uses the same words to teach us that it doesn't make a difference how much you bring, and makes a difference how you bring it, your intention, your heart. That's what counts. Then we have brought a Gemara. We have two different opinions, Rabbi Zera and Rabbi Ada Bar Ava, bringing two different verses to derive this principle. And the main thing is not how much you consume, but the main thing is your dedication. And then we brought a Brisa, where it also brings the same teaching that we have in the Mishnah, but there's a teaching before that and a teaching after that in the same Brisa. The teaching before that in the Brisa was Reb Shimon ben Azai. He tells us why it only says the God's four-letter name in the sacrifices, not any other names of God, not to give a claim to a heretic to claim that there's different deities. And the teaching afterwards was that the verse brings a few different verses to prove that God doesn't need our offerings because he's hungry. God just wants to command us to bring the offerings, but because he wants us to bring it, not because he needs them. Okay, so that's the Talmudic parts. This is all that we learned today is different quotes from the Talmud. Then we're going to continue tomorrow, God willing, with the questions on this and explanations and so on, and the lessons that we can learn. Okay, so that's it, everyone. I will unmute everybody. If everyone wants to sit and schmooze for a little bit, you're welcome to.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Michael, you too. God bless.
Well done.
Thank you, everyone.
Jack, anything to say?
I think he's hungry.
You think God's hungry, huh?
Meat guy. He's a meat guy.
The meat guy.
See, Jack, we needed your input.
Yeah. So I think everyone's afraid to say God's really hungry. He has an insatiable appetite, and he likes his meat. He likes it burnt for some reason. I don't know.
likes the steaks well done.
I think God's hungry too. I think he's hungry for mitzvahs.
But I think he would love my mother's food. Likes it nice and burnt.
Alex, I see you're on. Are you able to hear Alex?
No, that's Del. Everybody's
That's me.
in bed
That's not
still.
Alex.
No, Alex is on the swipe to the left. You'll see Alex.
Oh, no, he's not on
There's three-
anymore. Okay.
Oh, okay.
He
I'm
was
next
on.
to Moshe.
Oh, he left. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Okay. Well,
You look more
nice-
comfortable than me, Jeff.
I gotta tell you, I can always make it to shul in this state.
The commute is great.
Yes.
Like-
I didn't think it was going to snow today. I thought we were done with this snow.
Yeah, on this
Hey.
form, what difference?